Okay, so in this video, or I should say this project, we're going to be creating this mobile looking UI here with an image for the content and then some tabs down here. We have homework, blog, and about us. And it's just going to show a different image depending on which tab we click. If I click this one, you'll see the image changes. So basically we're going to have a specific class of show on the content and a specific class of active down here. You can see the active one will be highlighted in purple. So basically we need to loop through these list items here, this menu, and add an event listener onto each one so that we can add and remove certain classes onto the content here as well as the items themselves. Alright, we're going to get started on our mobile tab navigation. So let's go ahead and create the user interface. I just have my project starter open here. Let's open up all of these files. And I'm also bringing Font Awesome in using the CDN because we will be using Font Awesome icons for the menu items. So let's call this mobile tab navigation. And let's get rid of that. So everything is going to be wrapped in a class of phone. So we'll have kind of like a phone UI container here. And then for the images, I'm actually going to paste these in. Let me paste in the first one. So these are from Unsplash. Of course, you can use any image you want, or you don't even have to use images if you want it to be content or whatever, text content, that's fine. But we're giving this a class of content, so all of them will have this content class, but whichever one is showing is going to have a class of show. Okay, so I'm going to grab the other three images, which all have the class of content, but do not have the class of show. Okay, only the first one has the class of show. So let me just push these over. Okay, so we have four images. Now the navigation, we're going to put right under the last image here. Let's put a nav tag. And in here we're going to have a UL with a list item. And then we'll have our icon. So let's use Font Awesome here. It's going to be FAS and FA home, and underneath that we'll have a paragraph with the text of home. Okay, right now these images are going to be giant, so just ignore this for now. And then let's copy this list item here. We're going to have three more. So the second one here, the icon will be box, and this is going to be work. And this one here, let's do the icon book-open, and this will be blog, and then this last one here is going to be FA users, and this one will be about us. Alright, so that should do it. Let's jump into the style sheet here, and I'm going to use Open Sans for my font, so I'm going to get rid of this. So up to CSS and then question mark, and let's say family equals open plus sans. And then for the font family here, we'll say open sans. And we want a background color on the body here. So background color, I'm going to use RGBA. So red will be 155. Green will be 89, blue will be 182, and the alpha value will be 0.7. Okay, so it gives us that purple color. And then we have, let's see, flex direction, we can get rid of that. Min height, we get rid of the overflow hidden. And you can go ahead and you can scroll down and see all the images. Actually, they're all out of whack, so we'll fix that soon. So the class of phone wraps around everything, and for that let's set the position of that to be relative so we can position stuff absolute within it. And I'm going to set overflow to hidden on that, and let's set the border, so we're going to have a border of 3 pixels solid, and the color will be EEE. And let's set a border radius and we'll set the border radius to 15 pixels. And then let's set the height of this to 600 pixels, and the width will be 340. Okay, so now we can see our image. The content inside, so each image has a class of content, right? So let's say phone, and then the content, which is the image. We're going to initially set the opacity to 0. As soon as I do that, though, it's going to go away. I'm going to just comment that out for now so we can style the rest. Let's set object fit to cover, and let's set the position of this to be absolute, and then we'll set from the top 0 and from the left 0. And you might see a different image too, because remember, they're just, all the images are there, they're just in the same place. And then for the height of this, basically we're going to have down here our tabs, and it's going to be about 60 pixels high. So what we'll do is use calc here, and we can calculate, we'll say 100% of the height, but minus it by, let's say, 60 pixels, so that it gives us a little bit of room down there. And let's just make sure the width, we set this to 100%. And we're going to have a transition on this, because when we change the image, basically when we rotate the class of show, we want it to have that kind of fade in effect. So the transition is going to be on the opacity property, 0.4 seconds, and ease. Now the content that has show, so let's say phone dash content, if it has a class of show, we want the opacity to be 1. So let's go back up here and uncomment this. That way the only image that's going to show, or the only content that's going to show, has that opacity of 1. Okay, so it's this first one here because it has that class. If I go and I put show on this one, it's going to show that image. Okay, and it doesn't have to be an image, it could be some kind of content if you want. Now let's style the navigation. So the nav, I want to position that to be absolute within the phone container. So you can see that we can see it now, but it doesn't look very good. Let's put it to the bottom. So we'll say from the bottom 0 and from the left 0, which is going to move it down there. And then let's set a margin top of -5 pixels, which is going to just bring it up a little bit. And let's set the width, here to 100%. Okay, now let's style the menu, because we don't want this to be going vertical, we don't want list bullets, we want it to go across here. So we'll start with the UL, so let's say nav UL. I'm going to set the background color to white, and let's set it to display flex, so that all of the list items will line up in a row as flex items. I'm going to set list style type to none, because I don't want any bullet points. I'm going to set the padding and the margin to 0, and the height is going to be 60 pixels. And you can change this, but it should match whatever you have up here in this calc value, where we're taking that away from 100% of the height of the phone. And I think that's all we want to do there. Now for the list items, let's say nav list items. Let's do a, actually we don't want a background color, we want a color of 777. So we're going to make those lighter. Let's add a cursor pointer, and we want them to be all spread out the same width, so we'll add a flex value of 1. And the padding, we'll just do 10 pixels all the way around. And let's text align center, so we'll move the text, move it from the left to the center. And then let's see, for the text down here is wrapped in a paragraph, so we'll say nav li paragraph, or nav, doesn't really matter, but we're going to select the paragraph, and I'm going to just change the font size to 12 pixels, so we'll make it a little smaller. And then let's set the margin to 2 pixels, top and bottom 0, left and right. So paragraphs have a margin of 10 pixels by default. We just lessened it to 2, and it, took away that space. And then whichever one is hovered or active, I want to change the color. So let's say nav ul li hover, and also we want nav ul li, and if it has active, set color, and let's set that to hexadecimal 8E44AD. So basically we have we have the show class on the image, and that's what we want to show, and then whichever tab here is active will also have a class of active like this. And now you can see, since I put that class of active, it has that purple color. So that should be it for the CSS. In the next video, we'll go ahead and make this function to where we can click on one of these and it will change the content to whichever tab we're clicking on. Okay, so we're going to start on the JavaScript, which is going to be pretty easy, and I would challenge you to try and do this yourself beforehand. Basically, we need to bring in all the contents, which are these images here with the class of content. So query selector all will bring all those in. You also want to bring all the list items in, and then add an event listener on each of these. Okay, so you might want to loop through with a for each and add an event listener, and then you want to add the class of active to whichever one you click on, and also add the class of show to whichever of these images or whichever content should show. So let's say const contents, and we'll use document dot query selector all, because there's more than one. We're going to select the class of content, and then let's also grab from the nav ul, we want all the list items, and we'll call this list items, and we'll take the list items and let's loop through those. So for each, and we'll pass in here an arrow function and say for each item, and we also want to get the index, so we'll just use IDX here. This should be a fat arrow, and then let's add an event listener. So add event listener onto the item, and we want to listen for a click, and on click we're gonna first of all hide all the classes of show, or I should say remove all the classes of show and active. So let's have two different functions. This will be hide all contents, and let's say hide all items. Okay, so we'll go down here and create these functions. So hide all contents, and what we're going to do here is take the contents, and then for each one of those, so for each content, which is each div with the class, or I'm sorry, each image with the class of content, right? Yeah, so class of content, we brought that in here. Now we're looping through, and we want to take whichever content is current in the iteration and remove the class. So classlist.remove of show. Okay, and then let's copy this and let's do hide all items, and take, say, for each of the list items, and we'll change that to item, and let's remove the class of active. Okay, so if I save that and I go and I click on one of these, you'll see that there's no active class now on any of these because none of them are purple, and there's no image showing because there's no more show class, and the show class is what makes the opacity 1. The opacity is 0 by default. So after we initially hide those, let's take the item that we click on, and let's take the class list and add to it the class of active. So if I click on this one here, you'll see that this is active, and so on. And then we also want to add the class of show onto the correct content. So here, let's say contents, and remember contents is a node list, so I can access 0, 1, whatever index I want to use the index from this for each, so that the first one shows the first one, second item shows the second, and so on. So we want to add the class of show onto that. So now when we start off here, this is already active because we have it right here. And then if we click on the second one, this will be active, it's purple, and it should show the second image. Okay, the second one in the node list. This one here will show the next one, this one will show that one. Okay, so it's always going to show the correct one because of the index that we're adding that show class onto. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. So I will see you in the next video.